A very warm welcome to you. I'm Anandi, and when I was a young girl, I actually never felt good enough. I always kind of felt like somehow I didn't kind of make the grade, or I wasn't perfect enough, or I felt like no one had any expectations for me. And as time went on, I developed kind of a behavioural pattern, like the people pleaser behavioural pattern. And what I learnt is that if I kind of bent over backwards, and if I did a lot for everyone, even though it was really difficult for me, and it was great for everyone else, then I got lots of acknowledgement, I got loved, and I just kept on doing it. And over time, I developed what I call hypervigilance. And what I mean by that is that I kind of was always judging, kind of like wondering what they were thinking. Well, what if I said this? You know, what would happen if I said this? What would happen if I said that? And it really started to cause me an awful lot of stress. And that pattern just continued and continued. So people-pleasing, hypervigilance. And I ended up skating on very thin ice quite a few times in my businesses, and really due to decisions that I made from that kind of behavioural pattern, that space. And then a couple of divorces in there as well. And consequently, I developed chronic insomnia. And it just went on, and it went on, and it went on. So I would have like 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, and I would kind of drag myself through the day, wanting the ground to swallow up, open up, so I could just disappear, because I found it so difficult to kind of deal with people. You know, it was sometimes I just cry because I would just be so tired. Does anyone else out there relate to being always tired? Anyone not sleeping very well? Put your hands up. About 30% of the population are predisposed to insomnia. So does anyone have this problem of kind of being like so tired, but when you actually get to bed and you put your head on the pillow, your mind starts going? Does anyone have that going on? How about just being always tired, like just constantly tired? No energy? Yes. Is anyone feeling like you just can't be productive in your day? You can't focus, you can't concentrate because you're just so tired. Does anyone feel like that? Not many hands going up. A few hands going up. And is anyone worried about the long-term effects of sleep deprivation on your health? That's actually quite a big one. That was a big one for me. And I said about the not concentrating. Just the inability to focus on what you're doing, being creative, have the energy to give something. I have got some good news for you. So if you can breathe deeply, you can expand your breath. You can have an experience of a peaceful mind, because the breath is so intimately linked with the nervous system. The thing is that you need to learn how to use your breathing apparatus, to have the freedom in the breathing apparatus. A lot of people, when I say take a deep breath in, they go like that, because that's the only way that they can actually get some space to get some breath in. And that's because everything is kind of locked down, because the stress creates the sort of thoracic cavity. There's a muscle in the back that's called the depression muscle, and it kind of like holds it down. It's your exhaling muscle. And it makes it very, very difficult to breathe. So one of the steps is actually learning how to use your breathing apparatus. Now, one of the things is about the connection between the breath and a quiet mind. The breath has such an intimate relationship with the mind. And this is really proven by science. The exhale, for example, is connected to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the nervous system that calms you down. And the inhale is connected to the sympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the nervous system that kind of goes into that fight or flight response, which we'll talk about. And this is proven by science. So if you can lengthen the exhale, and there are different sorts of breathing exercises that you can do that will connect you to or help you lengthen the exhale so that you can quieten the mind. And also, the left side, the left nostril, is connected to the lunar, the quiet, the feminine, the parasympathetic nervous system, that part of the nervous system that calms you down. And the right nostril is connected to the solar, busy, fight or flight part of the nervous system. Again, there's lots of different breathing techniques that you can use that will, connect you to that lunar quiet energy. And this, again, is proven by science. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to connect to the breath, connect to the breathing pattern that quietens down the mind. And why do we want to quiet down the mind? Well, a busy mind doesn't sleep at night. And you have to kind of move out of the busy brainwaves. I'll talk to you about the brainwaves in just a second, but kind of move out of the busyness of the mind in order to sleep, because a busy mind will not sleep at night. So just to go over the kind of the brainwaves and sleep. Fundamentally, the beta brainwaves are the brainwaves that, like, we're all in now, kind of like, we're busy, we're doing stuff, we're active. And that part of the mind is connected to your ego. It's the part of the mind that kind of limits you. It's the part of the mind that argues for your limitations. It's connected to your ego. It's very, very good at doing lots of things all at the same time. And if you're in that brain state, then you're not going to be able to sleep very well. You will not go into a deep sleep. So you have to find a way of bringing your mind out of those sort of like beta brainwaves into the alpha state. When your brain moves into the alpha state, then you go into that state in meditation. And that's part of the slowing down states when you go into sleep. And the alpha state is connected to the part of your mind that knows. In yoga, we call it the buddhi. It's like your intelligence. And when you're in that state and you're more connected to that state in your mind, then you're more connected to that part of you, that inner intelligence that kind of really knows what's best for you. The ego is kind of fighting to kind of like keep you busy, but when you come into the alpha state, then you're connecting, you're moving inwards. And a lot of the time with sleep is that we're so busy kind of like running out there, we actually make all sorts of weird, wrong decisions. Like, have you ever had the experience of making a decision, when you're tired and you haven't really kind of like thought it through, or you thought you thought it through, and then you just made another bad decision for yourself, or you've said yes to something that actually you meant no, and you got yourself in a right old mess like I used to do a lot. So it's important to bring the mind down to the alpha state, and you can do that by using and connecting to the breath, and we'll do a little exercise later to demonstrate that. And then you go into theta. So in theta, this is your REM sleep. So REM sleep is your dream sleep. And in that state, in that brainwave pattern, you're connected to what we call the akashic field, or the infinite field of possibilities. And what I mean by that is that kind of like the consciousness where everything is stored. So if anyone knows anything about quantum physics, it's available. My Guruji, he often says, "Oh, I've had a download," and what he means is he's had an inspiration. You know those aha moments? That's when you're going into that state. So obviously that's why people try to interpret dreams, because there's messages in dreams, and that's your REM dream sleep state. And then the delta waves is when you're in a deep sleep. So the REM sleep is when your brain is refreshing, and you have about, in theory, ideally, you would have at least 20% of your whole sleep pattern is in REM sleep, because that is the sleep that's refreshing the brain. It's processing everything that's come in through the five senses. And the deep sleep would be about 12, 15%, and that sleep is when your body's recovering, and the rest of the sleep is light sleep. So you go in and out of these patterns about sort of 5 times. So you go light sleep, REM sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, light sleep. And you'll get most of your deep sleep in the first sort of few hours of the night. So usually between sort of 11 and let's say 2. So probably if you're not sleeping very well, if you're someone that doesn't sleep very well and you fall asleep, chances are you'll be waking up about 2 or 2:30 and then not being able to get back to sleep. So basically, when you're in that situation, if you're always stressed out during the day and you can't kind of bring your mind down, you're not going to be able to stay into sleep. You're just going to come straight out from light sleep into a wakeful state, because actually you do wake up a number of times during the night, but you might not be conscious of it because you're kind of like just coming out and then you're going back down into REM sleep. So that's the brainwaves, and the connection between the breath, quietening the mind, bringing the mind quieter, and into the alpha state, which is the quiet mind, is deeply connected to the sleep hormones. So you have you have serotonin and you have melatonin, and that's deeply connected to your circadian rhythm. Serotonin is your mood hormone, it's your happy hormone. So when the sun comes up in the morning, the serotonin levels come up. And then in the evening, when the sun goes down, the melatonin levels go up, which is why if you're struggling with sleep, you do need to have a very dark room, because that's a signal to your body to start producing melatonin. So serotonin, your body has to make serotonin, and it makes serotonin from something called tryptophan. Tryptophan you have to eat. Most people actually, if you have a fairly healthy, varied diet, you're probably going to get enough tryptophan, and that isn't usually the problem. The problem lies in the imbalances in your daily rhythm, your circadian rhythm. So it's very important to have a good rhythm in your rituals. So going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time, and making sure that your room's dark, and making sure that you do actually get out in the daylight in the morning, because that has an effect on your rhythms. So your serotonin goes up, so you have this going up and down all the time, and it's so intimately connected with, the daily rhythms of nature, and we're just living outside of the realms of nature, with the computers and the phones and all those sorts of things. I know you read a lot about phones and blue light and all that, but it's very true. If you don't switch off, and I personally know, because I have got a constitution of an insomniac, but because I know how to balance my constitution, I know how I can get to sleep and have a good night's sleep. But if I kind of go off and I'm working late for some reason or other, and I'm on there at 9:30, it will definitely disturb my sleep. So if you're prone to a sleep problem, then you definitely have to manage technology. A lot of people go, I'm on there at 11, I'm doing research at 11, and I just sleep. Well, they're just lucky. They're just the part of the constitution, actually, that don't have a problem. But anyway, so that's melatonin. So one of the things we need to do is, or one of the tools we've got that's free to everyone on the planet, is the breath. And the breath has got so many incredible qualities that we don't realise. And I wrote a book about it, and I have got a few copies, but I couldn't lug a load of copies here, but I've got a few copies. And it's all about the different aspects of the breath. So before I go any further, I really wanted to introduce you to Hanuman. And you think, who the hell's he? But in the West, we don't learn much about the breath at school. I don't know, does anyone out there remember at school anyone talking to you about the breath particularly? Or was it all about winning the game and doing sport? I mean, it was for me. But in the East, the breath is a completely different kettle of fish. And there's this amazing love affair with the breath in the East. In India, they have all these amazing scriptures. And there's a scripture called the Ramayana. And it's a story of the two lovers, Rama and Sita. And the demon king comes along and abducts Sita. And then Hanuman comes in and rescues Sita. So Hanuman represents the breath. And he's the son of the wind god, Vayu. And when Hanuman comes in to the story and rescues Sita, he's symbolically demonstrating or symbolically showing you that the qualities of the breath and the magic powers of the breath. In yoga, we have something called siddha. Siddhi is like a magic power, but it's actually really about when you're really connected to the breath, things happen. So the qualities of Hanuman. Imagine what you would feel like if you were able to not hemorrhage your energy, if you were able to kind of draw your energy inwards. Because actually, whilst you think, well, why aren't I sleeping? I'm exhausted. You know, if you're really tired and you're so tired and you still can't sleep, it's because you don't have enough energy. You need energy, actually, to sleep. You need vital life force in order to sleep, because there's a certain aspect of the vital life force which takes you into a deep sleep. And if you're not getting enough of that vital life force and you're so wrung out, that's another reason why you won't be sleeping. So you have to kind of like draw your energy inwards. And that's the quality of Hanuman. He was able to like become compact, to like draw the energy in. And imagine what it would feel like if you could infinitely expand. And that's metaphorically speaking, because the ego keeps us small and the ego kind of limits us. And because we are unable to kind of go with our soul or our intuition, because the ego is like stopping us and it's saying, oh no, don't do that. No, you won't be any good at that. Oh no, you'll fail at that. And you have all that going on. That will also interrupt your sleep. You know, a human being that's infinitely expanded and infinitely expressed is a relaxed human being. A human being that's struggling and inside a box and wants to get out is someone who is struggling and someone who probably won't sleep very well. And that was part of my problem too. Imagine how it would be if you felt light and agile, because that's another quality of Hanuman, you know, the lightness and the agility. And someone who does yoga and in particular works with the breath, they'll have more of a lightness to their step, you know, and more of an agility and an ability to kind of move and to be light and not necessarily always on the feet. Lightness in the mind as well, because when you're exhausted and you're not sleeping, you get heavy, you know, you get like the emotions start coming and you become a bit irrational. And also the ability to be grounded and heavy. So Hanuman has this ability to expand, to be light, to be compact, and to be heavy, but not heavy in a sort of way, heavy in a grounded way, a bit like sort of like the mighty oak tree. So the mighty oak tree is grounded. Its roots are like deeply rooted in the earth. And then the wind blows. Yes, it moves, like the life happens. However, the tree stays rooted. And it's very symbolic in yoga, like the tree poses and things like that. But that's the ability to be grounded. And when you're not sleeping, you're feeling terrible, any old thing will knock you off your perch. And that's why it's so important to be grounded. And a way to connect to yourself and be grounded is by using the breath and working with the breath. Another thing of Hanuman is having the power to manifest what you want. And that's not weird and out there. It's basically when you want something, you need to have energy. You've got to have energy to put behind. You've got to have intention to put behind things. So it's important, you know, that's another quality of Hanuman, to actually, the energy to actually manifest whatever you want. Having the intention, because when you're exhausted, not sleeping, you haven't got energy to do anything at all. And the other thing is about the connection to the soul. So in the story, Hanuman brings Rama and Sita back together. So the breath is like reconnecting you to the soul when you connect to the breath. That's the story of Hanuman. Problem is that when most people are stressed, they can't breathe. Everything kind of shuts down. The breathing is very, very shallow. And they end up moving into the fight or flight. And I suspect people have heard about the fight or flight, but if you haven't, it's something that it's a physical reaction to stress, because the mind doesn't understand the difference between a threat to your ego or a threat to your physical being. The reaction is exactly the same. So your breathing speeds up, the blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up, everything speeds up, stress hormones are kind of pumped into your system, the immunity goes down because the body goes, hey, I haven't got time for germs, I've got bigger things to worry about. And of course your digestion system gets compromised. And if you are very stressed and you are not sleeping, it's very likely that your digestive system will be affected. That's another big story. And of course, if all that's going on, just keeping an eye on the time, all these sorts of things can happen. Obviously insomnia, heart disease, obesity, all those sorts of things start manifesting, because your body is under so much stress. One of the things that I wanted to introduce you to was a poem. And the poem is called The Breath is Life's Teacher. And this is a poem about the conversation that the breath is trying to have with you. And it's a really beautiful poem. And I've just extracted a couple of quotes from the poem that really kind of give you the idea of what the breath is trying to say to you. The first one is observe me, says the breath, and learn to live effortlessly in the present moment. So a load of people out there who are talking about meditation are talking about breath. They're talking about connecting to the breath. So the moment you bring your awareness to the breath, your mind will quieten, your breath will lengthen. 10 minutes, oh God. Your breath will lengthen. So the moment you bring it, that's all you need to do. The breath is free for everyone on the planet, and when you're stressed out, you just bring your awareness to the breath. And within a few minutes, your breath will start to lengthen, your mind will start to quieten. So that's one of the quotes in there. Allow me, says the breath, and I'll sustain and nourish you, filling you with energy, cleansing you from tension and fatigue. Allowing the breath. It's like when I was saying about people breathing in with their shoulders up, what else happens? They breathe in, and somehow the stomach goes in. So they kind of bring the shoulders up and the stomach goes in. And that is not deep breathing, because if you want to take a deep breath, the diaphragm has to come down, the belly has to come out in order to expand three-dimensionally. So this is about, making the space for the breath, allowing the breathing apparatus space for the breath. Move with me, says the breath, and I'll invite your soul to sing. So this is another example of you got to move with the breath. So if you're going inhale, shoulders up, stomach in, it's not moving with the breath. So the breath, like the expansion of the breath, allowing the belly to expand with the breath and not use the mind too much, because when the mind comes in, it starts restricting everything and the breath gets shorter and the whole thing gets out of sync. Are my waves of breath as gentle as the quiet sea, softly smoothing sandy stretches of yourself, or anxious, choppy waves crashing like a stormy sea? And this is really beautiful. The sea, when it's calm, it kind of like goes out and it sort of pauses a minute and it changes direction, and it kind of goes in, pauses a bit, changes direction, and it kind of has this wonderful rhythm to it. And that's what the breath should be like. When I was writing on my book, I was trying to think of a way of explaining it, and I thought tango. You know how tango dancers kind of like all together, and they sort of move as one. These two gracious energies, the inhale and the exhale, they move away from each other, then they move together, and it's all very synchronized and all very beautifully rhythmic. But when you're stressed out and you're not sleeping, you're feeling terrible, the breath starts getting short and you can't find the rhythm. Do you want to sort of like just try something? Just for a moment, just take a long, deep breath. Just do your version of a long, deep breath. So just do one now, long, deep breath. And then just exhale. Who felt like there's probably more and you didn't really feel very satisfied with that version of your breath? Did you feel like there's more? Yeah. Because the mind is getting in the way. Can you feel me as the link between your inner and outer worlds? The universe breathes me into you, says the breath. Most people think they're actually breathing the breath, but actually the breath is breathing you. Gravity is about 14 pounds per square inch. So what you do with your body is you make space. and then the universe fills it. So you are not actually breathing. The universe is breathing you. All you're doing, your body is actually making space and the universe fills it. And in the Latin language, spiritus means breath, breathing, inspiration, light, breeze, spirit. So it's not a coincidence that we use the word breath for the breath. There's definitely, and historically, for the thousands of years, there's definitely more to the breath. Your attitude to me, says the breath, is your attitude to life. Welcome me, embrace me fully, let me nourish you completely, and then set me free. That was just one about the fact that life, sometimes we hold on too much to life. It's all too, we're frightened that if we let that go, we might not get any more. And it's about kind of allowing life to come and nourish us, and then just letting it go and just moving in the flow with life. I'm going a bit quicker now because I'm running out of time. Don't try to control me. The breath doesn't want to be controlled, especially if you're 5 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes. Okay. Just very quickly, when I was writing my book, I was experimenting, and I was experimenting with the length of a breath. So I was going, right, I'm going to take a deep breath with my mind, and I time that one, and then I'm going to just let the breath come, and I time that one. So the mind one that I went, oh, right, I'm going to take a deep breath, like I said to you, like now take your deep breath. That was 15 seconds. And then I just laid there, and I was like, I'm going to wait for the breath to come. I'm just going to wait. And that was 50 seconds. So I was just waiting to the breath to come, because it will, unless you're dead, you will breathe. And that was a very interesting experiment. Right, just very quickly, just stand up, just very quickly. I'm going to do this really quickly. Right, okay, so what I want you to do is I just want you to put your left hand on the bottom of your belly and your right hand on top of your left hand. And I want you to just close your eyes, and I want you to bring your awareness into your hands. Just bring your awareness into your hands and just observe the breath. Don't try to do anything at all with the breath. Observe what the breath's doing. Just observe, just watch, notice and feel. And now just bring your left hand on your middle of your chest and your right hand on top of your left hand, and bring your awareness into your hands. And now watch the breath. See what happens to the breath. And then bring your hands onto the side ribs like this. And bring your awareness into your hands with your eyes closed. Just notice what happens to the breath. Okay, sit down. Did you notice that the breath was following your hands around? So all you need to do to lengthen the breath is do that and bring your awareness into your hands, and your breath will do it all by itself. That's all you need to do. You don't have to try to lengthen the breath, do anything with the breath. Literally bring your hands on your belly and bring your awareness into your hands, and the breath does it all by itself. We have 1 minute. So it's a very quick invitation to my retreat in Tuscany. It's a stunning place. We're going to do Ayurveda, breathing, food as medicine, and it's going to be stunning. There's a special offer. I know it's all very quick, but there's some leaflets there which you can grab on the way out. It needs to be booked by the 6th of June. But anyway, I can't invite everyone because I've only got 4 spaces left. But there are some spaces. And there's a £150 show discount offer. It's a private room, including food, workshops, everything, apart from flights, obviously, airport transfers. And it's 1545 for 5 glorious nights. It's going to be stunning. It's got a beautiful pool, and there's lots of input from me. Or a shared room if you want to come with someone, and that's 1195. And I think I've done it. It's 4:30. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Namaste. Thanks for listening.